You know you've lost the plot when Rolling Stones cancels you. You could have been up there with the greats. Nirvana, Rage Against the Machine, Chris Cornell. Even if you died, you could have died a legend. Just hours ago, Rolling Stone published this article. Check this out. This is a list of alternatives, places you can go that's not Airbnb. Now, they're being nice in the first couple of paragraphs, but I know this guy who wrote this article probably deep down hates the shit out of Airbnb for a reason, and that's why he came out swinging on this article. This is very timely. We've been talking about the death of Airbnb because it's viral in the YouTube meta space, right? Airbnb collapse, Airbnb fail, Airbnb's dead. A top 5 way to make your place more pretty gets like 2% click-through because everybody's so dystopian right now. But Rolling Stones just landed on the tone of the point. This is a business landscape where people quit or migrate, right? And Airbnb hosts are quitting, guests are leaving the platform, hosts are leaving the platform. And Rolling Stones nailed it right here. There are way more brands than Airbnb. And Airbnb did lead the charge in making this low barrier to entry and fun and put a bunch of inventory in the space. But now Airbnb's lost their footing. They're down to 43% market share from 50%. And this criminal lineup here is the reason why their market share is down. I'm going to tell you a corporate America secret that Airbnb doesn't want to tell you. And as a sales trainer for 15 years, it's rooted in dark psychology, and they got you all good with it. They got me too. And I do the same thing with my housekeepers. If I hire someone from Jack in the Box and they become a housekeeper with me, they won't go housekeep for other Airbnbs because they don't know the ecosystem exists like that. I'm controlling how much they know, right? I'm controlling that context. In the same way, Airbnb got you guys. They got you to put up your property as like a spare room. They got you to put up unique stuff. They try to make their hosting platform different than every other OTA, right? They're like, let's compete with all these OTAs, but make it completely different in feel and style so you disregard VRBO, Booking.com, etc. But now, Airbnb can't create enough space from them because these other competitors realize how good they did, and any company can start to rework their host side for adoption. Now, these other providers are after Airbnb's inventory, and there's no way that they can be different enough for hosts to keep hosts from going multi-channel. That's it. Now, the guest side, that's really going to be the fight. But these other platforms have a bit of an advantage because they are curated. They're not everybody everywhere. Some of them are, like Booking.com's a monster, but like One Fine Stay, for example, there are places that spell or signal a certain type of product. And so people who prefer that type of product may go to those sites because there's more trust for that specific product. Where Airbnb's been really about novelty, you know you can find a unique space on Airbnb. Booking.com, you can find anything, anywhere, all over the world. So Booking.com has a global trust factor, I think. But then yes, alas, you have these luxury ones. And I think the more that luxury platforms start pulling people, guests and hosts alike away from Airbnb, Airbnb's going to lose a lot of their big revenue. Because of course, everything's based on booking fees. And how much could Airbnb lose if they lost their luxury product? That's a great question that we don't have an exact answer to, but we do have some data. Look at this. Luxury travel, i.e. product over $1,000 a night, has climbed like 73% since 2019. So much so that Airbnb started Lux. We remember that. But there's something more to this. Airbnb makes a good amount of their profit from something called the float, which is where people book in advance. And then Airbnb hosts get paid after check-in. So not only does Airbnb collect a good upsized amount of its revenue from big properties, but Airbnb also gets to hold that money for longer because bigger properties book at a longer lead time. So if Airbnb loses its luxury foothold, it loses a lot of its cash reserves that go into its float, where it invests and makes a return on that. But you and I were a little slow to this conversation. Rolling Stone's publishing this means that things are in the public eye enough for people to really chew on this. What has Airbnb done proactively to try to stop this? Well, they've done a few things. There's two sides of the coin. There's differentiation of product, and there's trying to be more sticky with guests. Those are their main two strategies for staying relevant. The differentiation of product is like private rooms, right? Home share. But then, of course, there's home share websites springing up. And I forget the one that everybody's talking about now lately, but you can do a split strategy where you rent your whole home out for big money, and then last minute you can rent out the private rooms all on Airbnb, for example. That is a key differentiator for companies like Marriott or VRBO, which probably won't ever do private rooms. Then becoming more sticky. They're trying to be more friendly to guests at the expense of hosts, though. And Airbnb does know something that we don't want to confess, which is if all the guests choose to use one platform because it has the highest trust for guests, then it doesn't matter where the hosts are if guests will only book under certain terms and conditions that are facilitated by one of the companies. But let's get real. Like, Airbnb actually has some of the least amount of guest trust right now. So they're trying to rebuild that bridge, but they are, again, at a huge disadvantage against these other players. But what does this all mean for you guys, really, right? There's this battle between platforms to try to win hosts and try to win guests. And what we should be doing is stealing from them. Every business practice, every technique, every tactic, every way to keep guests, retention, all of it, because we can have our own direct booking websites and we can carve out our niche. Hotels have their own loyal traffic and they still distribute on booking.com, hotels.com. We're going to be the same. All right. So while Airbnb and VRBO hash it out, let's quietly build our direct booking presence. Let's quietly build our brand and our social media to make something look super attractive for the right people for us, so we can build some real loyalty off the platforms. And that's the only way that we're safe. We can either spend our whole lives mastering the OTA games, which is still worthwhile, but we can also make sure that we can fish our own pond. We own the terms and conditions. We own the customer base. And at the heart of it, Rolling Stones has proven to us that there's tiers of disintegration in this industry. They just haven't called out the final one. The final phase is mass direct booking, completely fragmented home share. And it'll come one day, sooner than later. How fast? I don't know. I'd like to know your guys' thoughts. Some of you have really strong direct booking campaigns, and I would love to hear, your stories in the comments. And, do you recommend 10 out of 10? What do you think? Thanks for sticking around to the end, my friends. I'm going to go hit the gym. As always, I'll see you on the other side.